All right. Thanks everyone for joining us today. We're here to talk about the Bennington Area Arts Council. And this is our Knowledge Bites webinar series with the Southern Vermont Economy Project. Just a little information. We provide webinars and trainings, a lot of peer-to-peer information, and this is sort of part of that peer-to-peer learning opportunities. And these webinars are really meant to be sort of high-level introduction, and if there's some interest to dive deeper, you can always reach out to our presenters. And today we have Alix and Kate. John might be joining us here a little bit later, but they all serve on the Bennington Area Arts Council. And we'll, I guess, turn it over to Alix.
Great, thank you. So I think that, we'll start this by sort of introducing Kate and myself. The way the Arts Council works is that all of the board members are also invested in other organizations around town. It's part of what makes the work that we do successful. So I am also the director of advancement at Bennington Museum. And that greatly influences my work through the Arts Council, just because, I'm immersed every day in the arts world and very much rooted in the Bennington region. And Kate, you want to speak a little bit about?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Kate Cooper, and I am the Director of Strategy and Business Development at MSK Engineers. In that role, I have the opportunity to see what projects are upcoming and in progress in our region. And it's a really great way to integrate the work that we do in the Arts Council, where artists, are looking to get involved in this public art or art and new development, and to say, hey, here's a real opportunity for artists to get involved in this cool new thing that's happening in our region. So that's my introduction, and I think I'll go ahead and if John's not here, hopefully he'll be able to join us, but if not, John is our treasurer, and he is the executive director of the Better Bennington Corporation. He was instrumental in the formation of the Bennington Area Arts Council, and he has also been absolutely key to all of the cool improvements that are happening in our downtown. We've got pocket parks, the splash pad, all of the lights that go up every year, the street signs, the banners that go up. John is instrumental in all of that, so he's a great advocate for improving our downtown.
Yeah, and I think what's really interesting sort of about this triad here, is that I'm very much on the art side, and Kate is related to an organization that doesn't typically or necessarily have anything to do with the arts. And then John is sort of the bridge between those two sectors. And that is part of what we are trying to do with the Arts Council, is build community connections so that arts don't exist just in a silo, but that they can, influence and be influenced by lots of different things that are going on in the community. Sort of to build on what Kate was talking about, a brief history of the Arts Council. It was formed as sort of one of the many projects and committees of the Better Bennington Corporation. And back in 2012, things really started rolling as far as interest in what an arts council could do. And, over the course of several years, we decided to, or that group decided to, try to push forward a cultural plan. And it was great to be able to have the Better Bennington Corporation be a part of the town and have that link. And then moving up into, I think it was 2017, the Arts Council got the 501c3 status and became our own separate organization, which has its pros and cons for anybody out there who's forming an arts organization. It's something that could be really interesting to talk through. Functioning on your own with a board of directors is great if you're a small organization that provides a lot of agility and it allows you to take advantage of a lot of opportunities very quickly. And at the same time, as an all volunteer run board, you know, something that we're always looking towards is like, oh, you know, how can we find that like one staff member to do it? And for all intents and purposes, that still is John, who is the, you know, on the Better Bennington Corporation, you know, and has a job and has the connection to the town. And we are very lucky that we've maintained that relationship. And I would very much like to see that sustained because it's so important in all the work that we do going forward. Kate, do you want to talk a little bit about our mission?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I want to frame our mission by saying that Bennington County has a phenomenal arts economy. You know, we've been nationally recognized for, I think, 3 or 4 years in a row now as having one of the most vibrant arts economies for small towns. And by small town, they mean Bennington County, which I guess population-wise qualifies to some as a small town. So we are rich with artists. So, you know, the mission of the Arts Council sits within that context. And that mission is to champion a thriving cultural economy through the sponsorship, promotion, support, and encouragement of cultural activities, events, and organizations. So the Arts Council doesn't do, we don't do programming ourselves. We connect and we promote, we sponsor, and we support and encourage. So we're a connector. And, you know, our vision is that we become a hub of cultural activity with attractions and opportunities for people of all ages. Artists and performers choose to live and work here because this community values their social and economic contributions. And I think that we have really looked at both of the, I think that social contribution piece is often comes to mind for people when they think about the value of the arts, is that connection is obvious and maybe easier to immediately understand. And so a lot of our work is, you know, through that lens of the community development value of, you know, putting up a mural or, you know, our new pocket park. But there's something that I personally am really interested in is the economic value and of the arts economy, which you know, creates cachet and brings people to live in a place. So that's something that, in terms of involving, that I've tried to work to involve artists early in the economic development process. Alex, I think maybe this is a good time to just take a minute to talk about the charrette that I did and that process.
Yeah, I definitely. I mean, I want to also say that, you know, it's not just involving them early, but it's also giving artists a sense of ownership of the community that they live in when they are actually involved in some meaningful way in the process.
Yes, absolutely. And that meaningful way is not as an add-on, you know, a decorative aspect, but that it's critical to the form and feeling of a space. So, you know, a process that we did a couple of years ago that we've repeated, and I think we'll continue, is to host community design charrettes, and that's a process of gathering input from the community about what they want a space to look like and how it should function, and to then transfer that information to the artists in our community through our connections, so that they can then produce, you know, art or design or interventions that happen, you know, when a project is still in a feasibility stage. So that's one piece of the work that I personally feel really committed to, but it's not the only thing that we're working on.
Right. I think that each different member of the council sort of has a different initiative that they, you know, are constantly trying to move forward. So, you know, in my role in my life at Bennington Museum, I do a lot of the communications programming and also connecting. And I think that I bring that into my work with the Arts Council, trying to make it easier for artists and arts organizations to, you know, figure out how to best promote themselves. And, you know, if I hear about a specific grant that's available that the museum might be considering going for, I can say, oh, hey, you know, the town might go for this, and here are some partners that can work, you know, with the town to help bring this grant to fruition. I think partnerships for me are so key. And that's also a part of what Kate was talking about. But, you know, one example of something that I was working on before COVID was using sort of the databases that already exist to allow like musical performing artists to register themselves in Vermont. And I think it was Big Heavy World is the musical database in Vermont. And lots of artists don't know that they can use that database, and lots of venues don't know that they can use that database. And then, of course, where Bennington is situated very uniquely in the corner of the state, we have many, many ties to, Washington County and Rensselaer County and New York, and even over to Berkshire County and Massachusetts. And often I feel like, it's a little soapbox I stand on. I feel like Bennington County can be forgotten in the statewide funding because, a lot of our resources come in across the border and some of our resources go out across the border. But our community includes those border region towns. And so something I am very interested in is finding ways to break down the barriers and to bring this whole unique sort of tri-state region together as an entity that's very important and a big part of the culture of this region. Go ahead, Kate.
Yeah, I just wanted to use that as a jumping off point to thinking about like there's a value, I think, to the sponsorship, promotion, support, and encouragement work that we're doing internally to help artists make a living and grow their arts practice. But I also think that this is a time of change. Sarah, you had kind of asked us to think about like some of the challenges we've faced, and the pandemic has been this time of pause, at least for the Arts Council. And I think we've hit reset, and we've used that the disruption as a chance to have some renewal and refocusing. And the pandemic is also a moment when this whole area is, I think, of greater interest to people who might not want to, live in a dense city where they have to deal with traffic jams and high property values if they can work remotely. And I think that it's important for the Arts Council to raise awareness of the value of the arts economy in our region. And it's not just Bennington County, it's also, creating these other connections raises the profile and cachet of our region, and could attract, people who may wish to come here to live. So I think
that segs actually nicely into like how the question Sarah posed is, how will you know when you've accomplished your mission, and what does that look like? There's a lot of different ways that could look like. One of those is what Kate is saying, when this area really becomes attractive or more attractive to, people who might want to consider this a place to live, work, and visit. It already is quite attractive, but sometimes it's not as easy to find those resources or to know about that as maybe it could be. For me, success would be when artists in both the North Shire and the South Shire feel supported and recognized by their local government and by arts organizations, as opposed to just sort of existing and like, oh, isn't that nice? Artists love what they do. Why should they be paid for their work? We don't want that mindset. We want to actually, help artists earn a living on their work. And the arts organizations also, success is when they are consistently able to and encouraged to partner with, the governing organizations, the town, the state, on collaborative community projects and grants for the artistic betterment of the entire community. That collaboration and that support, that's what success means to me.
Yeah, Alix, I think this is a good chance to kind of acknowledge some of the partners that we have now. Sarah, you had asked, who are the players, and we have some great board members. But I think that our partners are just as much players as their board members are, because we, as a connector organization, we really our meaning and our activities derive from those conversations with others. So, we've been working with the Vermont Arts Exchange, the Bennington Performing Arts Center, Bennington College, the Bennington Museum. The town of Bennington has been fantastic to work with. And I think that's the seed right there. And that's not exclusive. Like, there are other people that we've been in conversation with, but I think that partnership with the town of Bennington is a model for what we'd like to see throughout the county. We've helped support, grants. We've helped participate in certain pieces of grant and project development. And we have created a link between the Vermont Arts Exchange, for example, and the town. And that's, I think that's the model.
Yeah, and I would say, since COVID, Kate's right. There was a reset moment where everybody's like, okay, now what do we do? And everything changed. We all realized that we could work together more easily, and also with the amazing advent of Zoom here, for me at least, it's easier to step out of my day and have a meeting than it is to like go downtown and have a meeting and carve out that much more time, or to do it when you can at night. I feel in many ways more connected to our community partners than before, just because we are in constant communication. I mean, I would say, over the past 3 months, we've partnered with the town to help, proof and improve 2 grants that they have submitted. And that is in part possible because we are all so used now to using these new digital technologies. So silver lining of COVID. Let's keep finding them.
Yeah, exactly.
What other questions, Sarah? Have we skipped anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think I assume this might be, what John would touch on if he was here, but if you are aware, I'm sure you've probably heard the story from John. But what was like the spark that created the Arts Council? That was, was there a challenge that the Arts Council was created to address? Was it an individual? Kind of what was that moment that the Arts Council came to be?
And Kate, please jump in if I'm getting this wrong, but the Arts Council was always, I mean, for a very long time, it was a working group that already existed within the Better Bennington Corporation. And I think the spark that that people really wanted it to be its own 501c3, I think that had to do with the idea that the Arts Council would be instrumental in enacting the cultural plan and would perhaps be more free and able to do so if we were our own 501c3, as opposed to tethered to the town of Bennington, because we wanted the cultural plan to serve the entire region. So at least that is my understanding of that spark. But again, this is an interesting conversation that should be had if you are forming your own arts council, thinking about the community you're serving and the benefits of being tethered to an organization that has taxpayer dollars supporting it versus being your own volunteer run board. Benefits to both. Does that kind of answer your question, Sarah?
Yeah, definitely. I think when I think of, Windham County has a Arts Council, and I'm like 99% sure that it is part of, or potentially, mostly supported through the town of Brattleboro. I'm not exactly sure of their structure. I don't think they're an independent organization, but I could be totally wrong. But it is interesting to sort of see how different art councils around the state, are formed differently or structured differently. And it's interesting to hear your perspective on what you think works best.
And I mean, I will say too, I think it depends a little bit on the funding model of the mission of the Arts Council. If you are a producing or presenting organization where you have the opportunity to have, ticket dollars or memberships or classes, income from that, I think that it makes a difference in your decision to be a part of a town or to be an independent organization. Whereas, in the Bennington Area Arts Council's case, we do not do that sort of thing. And so we would rely on donations and grants to fund some of the projects that we want to do, or we do our best to be supporting entities and the grants that others would apply for.
Mhm.
And it is not every arts council is like that. I've worked with a couple of different ones, and this is really the first one that it takes more of a higher level view of the
Mhm.
whole picture, which in some ways is very interesting and refreshing.
Mhm.
Sarah, you had asked, like what, I think you had a question about what keeps the Arts Council going. And I thought about that because this was a tough year, for an all volunteer organization.
Mhm.
And I think that something that comes out of being independent and not tethered to an organization and not actually, like not having those dollars is that you're entirely mission focused. Like,
Mm.
and, as a connector, we have to be mission focused. Like there's not the programming to kind of like get bogged down in. And I think that has been actually really valuable because the cultural plan, the Bennington area cultural plan was really well done. There was a lot of research that went into it. It's very clear, very well laid out. And the plan sort of assigns or like recommends assignments for different entities in the county to execute the plan. One challenge that we continue to work through and that's continually evolving in our county is the historical split between the North and South Shire. And, that's something that this cultural plan is meant to be for the whole region. And so we're not being tied to the Better Bennington Corporation in the town. Means that we really can take that holistic view and work towards those county relationships, and that what keeps us focused, what keeps us going, it's that there's that mission and there's this blueprint for what we should do, and if what we're doing is connecting and building those relationships, we can do that in a very organized way with that blueprint in front of us. And it's really up to the artist to put the the performances and the art and all the to put the arts into it.
Mhm.
But
Well, artists and arts
yeah.
organizations as well.
Yes.
I
Yep.
think that there's a role that arts organizations can play, and sometimes they don't think about it. They're very much sort of wrapped up in their own affairs. And part of the role of the Arts Council can be to remind those arts organizations of what role they can play in enacting the cultural plan, and remind them there's a larger world, that connections are valuable in the long run, for themselves too.
Mhm. Do you think it's imperative that a community or a region has something similar to a cultural plan for an arts council to be useful, or to have sort of a focus, or is that just happen to be your scenario?
Well, it's like a strategic plan,
Right.
right? It is very helpful as a roadmap and a toolkit, and as like a potential unifying source. Um, Kate, thoughts?
Oh, I think if you can have one that there is no downside to paying for that process. It the piece to me that I wish we could add on to that is an economic study of the value of our arts economy. That's my like big dream. But the cultural plan is a strategic plan, and it organizes it gives everyone it has everyone look in the same direction toward the future, and it helps people coordinate together. If there's a strategic item on there, it helps the Arts Council to understand who to connect to make that happen.
And I would say, looking at it from the other way, if a town does not have an arts committee or an arts council, the danger of the town just going ahead and getting the cultural plan in shape is that it would just sit on the shelf, right? Like,
Mm.
I think from the other way, you have to look at it as that you need a body who is able to take this plan and then try to do something with it.
Mm. Yeah, I like
Or
that.
at least a staff person. Some towns do have a person who's in charge of,
Sure.
of arts, should we all be so lucky.
Yes. Yeah, I think you know, that's the bane of a lot of planners, is, you know, doing all these studies and then it just sits on the shelf. So it's nice to know who's going to be responsible for putting those things into action, for sure.
And I think we're actually, the Arts Council, I think we're doing a pretty good job of referencing and using this plan and referring back to it and keeping it active. Like, I don't think that's been the case in Bennington, and it's by no means just because of the Arts Council. It's, you know, it is a community-wide effort, and I think that we are being successful in that. I mean, it's always an ongoing mission and job.
I want to ask one final question and then sort of open up to everyone else on the call. But what would be, both Alix and Kate, what would be sort of your favorite project? Project might not be the right term, but what has been the favorite project that you've completed, or maybe it's not done yet, that you've started?
Do you want to go first, Alix?
Well, I was going to say, you know, I really recently have enjoyed the collaboration with the town on various grants. I think it's been a lot of fun. You know, we've really been able to shine in terms of like bringing together different community partners and making sure these things happen. It feels fulfilling, and it feels like we're not alone. And right now, especially, I've really liked that. I mean, there's been other, you know, little projects, but this feels bigger. It feels more a part of a strategy. So that's a favorite for me.
Yeah, so I have really enjoyed these charrette processes that I've undertaken. This is sort of, I've done, I think, 2 now, and I think we're going to do another one. It's really exciting to connect like community wishes and to hear from people who live here, including people who may not usually have a voice. It's a chance to collect people's thoughts about how they want to see their spaces look and feel. And it's a way to raise the visibility of what our artists can add to spaces. So I just love making those connections, and I love the idea. You know, we're in this spring, we're going to be working with a neighborhood that is near our recreation center. And so we'll be working with a lot of youth, and maybe youth who are not, you know, always involved in processes that will shape the places, the facilities where they're going to spend a lot of time, and to you know, help them turn that into artistic expression with the Vermont Arts Exchange. Like, I just think that's so cool.
That's great. Those sound really exciting. I guess I want to open up to people who are on the call with us today. Kat, I know you put something into the chat. Oh, she's putting her mask on. So I don't know if you want to maybe chime in a little bit as being a planner in the Bennington area, sort of what you had talked about in your chat comment.
Well, thanks for bringing it up, Sarah. Just that the chat item that I included was another pro of having a cultural plan, or, you know, any plan for that matter, is being more competitive for funding opportunities, which because I haven't worked with the cultural plan yet directly as a regional planner for the Bennington County Regional Commission, I am though familiar with how other plans are really supportive. So I assume that that's something down the line that the cultural plan can be leveraged for.
Great. Jeff, for Joanne, Eric, do we have any questions? I know Eric's in Dover and Jeff's in Bellows Falls. Joanne, I'm not sure where you're calling in from.
I am from Swanton, way up at the other end of the state.
Great.
So cultural planner, so is a cultural planner actually part of the Arts Council, or is it part of another community organization?
Great question.
So the cultural the cultural, we don't have a cultural planner. I wish we did.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
a plan. It's a document. And so,
Okay.
you know, we hired a consultant who had experience with, doing these, and that it was the town and Alix, was it just the town? It was the town of Manchester and Bennington, I believe. They paid for it. And there were a lot of people on the committee who helped shape it. So a lot of people were involved in its creation, but it's a standalone document.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Joanne, I put a link in the chat.
Oh, good.
That is
Thanks.
the actual PDF.
Perfect.
Look
Thank
at.
you so much.
Yeah.
But
Jeff,
I was going to say,
Eric?
while the Arts
Yeah.
Council does do a lot to push forward the cultural plan, it's technically owned, if you want to say that, by the towns who commissioned it,
Okay.
right? It's supposed to be part of their missions. And we are doing our best to facilitate that.
Great. Thank you.
I don't have any questions. I'm sorry I was late to the start of the meeting. It's springtime. I got my first speeding ticket coming.
Uh-oh.
So, but I've long been a supporter of the arts, have a arts background and am a trustee in Bellows Falls. Just listening to the cultural plan and thinking about the town plan, how wonderful it would be if they were not so disconnected, and that we could get them to be part of the same economic, plan to move forward. So I think Bellows Falls has certainly a lot of opportunity, as your towns and communities do as well, and appreciate seeing what you folks are doing and creating models and so forth that can inspire other communities. So just appreciate being on the call, and thank you for sharing your insights.
Thanks, Jeff. And there's a lot of art going on in Bellows Falls, which is the
Always
third
convenient.
the third Fridays, pre-pandemic were always really exciting. There's always lots of things happening.
Yes, and it will come back.
Yes, it will.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Eric, not to put you on the spot, but just wondering if you have any questions from the Valley. Guess that probably not. Kat?
Well, it's funny because I'm jumping in with all these chat postings, but I actually came today with a question for Alix and Kate. So I really appreciate the overview of the Bennington Arts Council, because I've been familiar with it for a while and haven't had this opportunity to really understand, what it is that you guys kind of do and also don't do. What are you guys and what are you not? And so I'm coming with a specific question on one project, which is that I'm on the board of the library in Bennington, and the board is currently working on a project to support the staff in visioning improvements to the building facade, primarily on Main Street, but then later looking around the whole building. So obviously in a project like that, something that comes up is what types of public art could be integrated. I think just quickly, the thing that would seem to be pretty popular would be a mural of some kind. But my question is, I believe, and this may be answered, and the answer may simply be Kate's referenced the design charrettes that you have so enjoyed facilitating. And my understanding with that is that those have been for the town of Bennington, in which case a really open process with the public is really appropriate, because it's the town of Bennington primarily that's looking for the input. For the library, and this being kind of initially at least a board initiative, there is kind of a sense of still just exploration of what's even possible, and just for the board itself and then staff to understand that. And so when we start to think of, for example, a mural, I thought of, well, do we reach out to the council to, is your role to get us hooked up with an artist or a set of artists that could help us start to imagine what that looks like? And it's being cautious about that, because you don't want to go down the line, start working with one or two artists and we're still at such an exploratory stage, we're not sure if we would want to actually work with that artist or then later put out kind of a request of qualifications to see who we'd want to work with down the line. So that open question is just, what's the best way for, you know, the situation that we're in to reach out to the arts community to get some assistance, because none of us are artists or designers, without feeling like we're going to be asking so much that we're then, you know, basically committing to an artist that is not something that we're ready to do at this point.
Okay, I'll start.
Sure.
I think the Arts Council would be a perfect place to start those inquiries. You know, the first thing that I would say to that is to make sure that, you know, you had checked your boxes with, like, you know, the town of Bennington, to make sure that it was, you know, it was possible for the library to do the kind of project that you want on the facade. And then, you know, if all of that is good and kosher, and, you know, maybe you've sourced some kind of grant or funding or matching opportunity that you're thinking about maybe applying for in the future, you know, I would then put you in contact or bring into the conversation both the museum and maybe the Vermont Arts Exchange, but more so the museum, because the curator at the museum has a very deep bench of art, of regional and statewide artists, you know, that he is intimately connected with and knows about their work. And many of them are mural artists. And so he would be able to provide you with like samples to look at, to say, oh, we want to go in this direction or that, and then the contact. And then he would be able to like advise, this is how you go about, you know, selecting an artist, and this is the kind of like pay scale that you might be looking for, and would help facilitate that conversation. So it's like a multi-step process. You know, the Arts Council wouldn't do that because that's not either Kate nor my area of expertise, but we do know sort of the people that you would need to be in touch with to make that kind of thing happen.
Before you know, you even get to that stage, Kat, I think that from like a design thinking perspective, it sounds like you need to go through a process to identify like what it is you want. And I'd be happy to talk to you about that. But you know, I think you'll have a much more successful, efficient, and pleasant process if you kind of have a written scope of work that you want before, you know, you go through the steps that Alix was discussing. And it will help you kind of go through, like if you're looking at the portfolios of different artists, to understand like whose approach will be right for you. So I think, yeah, I think there's some work up front, but we can definitely help you connect.
Can I add something to what you all have said? In addition, maybe narrow down the area outside, if it's outside of where you would like some kind of artistic presence. And it may not even have to be a mural. It could be a mosaic. It could be a small sculpture of some sort. So there's lots of different things that, you know, I think first of all is identifying where you think it would look great. And then, as you know, these other ladies had mentioned, then you can kind of narrow down your scope as, you know, what do you want it to represent to, and then work with those in your community to figure out, you know, there's lots of different artists that would be very happy to, you know, have basically put their stamp on your area. So I think it's all great advice. So
What I hear a lot, you know, are organizations in town that want to support the arts or want to bring the arts into their business or their streetscape in some way, but not being artists, they don't really actually know what they want. They want an artist or a designer to tell them, you know, what that is. And you know, I don't know if that is the case with the library, but you know, that's another example. Yes, there's all kinds of like pre-planning phases that need to happen, and there are grants that support consultant work in those phases before you actually get to your action item. And that's where the Arts Council can connect with people that would be helpful for you to like talk through your process. You want the arts, you don't know what it is, that's okay. Like we can help you figure out how to make that decision.
I think that you know, that what I'm hearing, and I agree with, is that sometimes, you know, you think you want a certain thing, like you think you want a mural, and maybe you do, but maybe what you need to do is come up with like the feelings and symbols and images that you know, the message that you want to convey, and then maybe that consultant could then help you develop that into the type of art that you want.
Yeah, this is all perfect, because this is where, like I said, there's that knowledge and experience gap between where we know that we are and where we know that we want to be, and we just need somebody to hold our hand through the process. So this is all perfect, and I will continue. We'll follow up after today with you both.
Great. I just want to be mindful of our time. It is 12:45 and it feels like we're kind of wrapping up here. So if there are any final questions, happy to entertain them, or we can leave with a few minutes early. Eric, I don't know if you had any questions. I know I called on you and you probably were pulled away, but.
No, sorry, the phone's been ringing off the hook. I don't have any questions right now. I literally was I wanted to hop on today to listen in, and some valuable information. So thank you guys for being here.
I have a question for you. Is Dover considering an arts council, or like what is your sort of thought process on how this could be useful for Eric as the economic development director for the town of Dover?
So it's something that's been discussed, you know, within our department. It's something that was even mentioned like in the town plan in terms of like economic development and things like that, and kind of shifting our offerings to a younger demographic, right? Which at this point is going to be your arts and breweries and kind of some more crafty things. So it's an ongoing conversation here. I don't know that we are anywhere close to the idea of like an official arts council at this point, but you know, it's always a part of the conversation. I mean, we want to grow our community as much as possible, and obviously that includes the arts. So that was the idea behind me hopping on today, just so I could listen and get some ideas and opinions.
Awesome. Great. Well, Alix and Kate, I don't know if you have any final thoughts or words to share with us, but if not, we can close out for the day. Great. All right. Well, thank you both, Alix and Kate, for taking the time this afternoon to share your experiences. I think everyone on the call learned a thing or more than one thing. So I appreciate that. And like I mentioned, this is recorded, so it will go up on our webpage, so it can be accessed later if you want to review because you missed something or you forgot what was said, or you could share it with other people in your town.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
All right.
Have a great rest of your day.
Bye.